All right, hi. I want to introduce you to Carolyn Elliott, who is a professor at Front Range and a friend of mine. And Carolyn, would you like to share your story?
Sure. So you all have been studying about teratogens with your professor, and I am the result of a teratogen. My mother was exposed to a child who had rubella, and the short version of the whole story, the researchers and specialists at University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, Child Amputee Prosthetics Project. At one point we lived in the Southern California area because of my dad's work, and they did extensive interviewing of my parents and determined that there was no such anomaly on either side of my family, not my dad's family, not my mother's family. And they determined that it was most likely my mother's exposure to a child who had rubella. And I was born in Eureka, Kansas, and it was, my parents lived in an apartment building, so a little child across the hallway had rubella, and Mom had gone to visit. And it was before my mother knew she was pregnant with me. And I have learned that the 5th week in gestation, the embryo gets buds for fingers and toes.
Okay.
And so the specialists figured that what happened was that the rubella just killed off what I had growing at that moment, which would have been fingers and toes. So with my fingers, most of the carpals and metacarpals were infarcted, I think is the word, killed off. And I did get thumbs, so these are thumbs.
Okay.
And then these are little fingers, and that was determined through x-ray.
Okay.
And I also learned that in utero, the embryo gets buds for thumbs last.
Okay.
So I had all of it. But the rubella virus was enough to kill off whatever was growing at the moment. And then on my feet, similar sorts of things. So I have, the calf bones, the ankle bone, the heel plate, the Achilles tendon. I just don't have any tarsals or metatarsals. There's nothing out there. So it's like running around on your heels. I run around barefooted. And but it's a little hard to put shoes on such feet, so artificial legs are necessary.
Okay.
And I still don't understand how, but by the age of 1, I had my first pair of artificial legs.
Wow.
And that meant that they had to have this 1-year-old, me, hold still for casts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they take casts of the leg where they want to build the prosthesis. And so ever since I was a year old, I've had artificial legs. My mom said that I was pulling myself up. I hit all the milestones in terms of development.
Okay.
And she said I was even shimmying out of the crib and down the side and racing around the house. And she said, and she told me this actually just recently. She said, I realized you weren't handicapped, so I'll let you go. So they did. They let me just do whatever it is I wanted, and I rode bicycles. I was always hiking. I think that's just my nature. I love the outdoors, and I just love doing whatever it is I want to do. Mom said that I tried to grab things with my right hand, but it doesn't grab very well because what I have is so far down in. So if I had your hand, okay. So my hand is way down here in the bottom.
Okay.
So there's like almost nothing there to grab. This hand is a little higher up.
Okay.
So, and this arm is a little longer too.
Oh.
So the right hand didn't grab, the left one did. So I just by default became left-handed for certain tasks. But to write, I actually write right-handed.
Okay.
But the right hand won't hold the pen, so I use the left just to hold the pen.
Okay.
So that's all I do. So, human beings are incredibly adaptable. So we figure out, how to adjust. And, people who've had their arm in a cast, they figure out how to brush their teeth, whichever arm they've got.
Yeah.
So we just get pretty adaptable. So if I were to say that there is a handicap, I would say it's really in the perceptions of other people. So, you know, there have been some really strange comments. In the early 70s when I was in college, yes, I'm that old, there was a big sign, I was an English major, big sign at a bookstore, now hiring. So I thought, oh, perfect place for the English major to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think twice about lifting, carrying books, because I did. I mean, this is not an issue.
Yeah.
So I went in and I said, I'd like to fill out an application. So the manager came out and did this, you know, looked up and down a couple of times and said, well, no, we're not hiring. And in my mind, I thought immediately, even though there is the big sign now, hiring, and he said not hiring, I thought, yeah, you are. I don't want to work for you. So I said, well, thank you. And turned around and laughed, found other employment. But, you know, there have been things that people say because they just don't understand. They lack the exposure. So, yeah, humans are really pretty adaptable. You know, I could sit and whine and cry. What would that get me? A lot more misery. I'm not interested in that. Let's move on. I got life to live. So, you know, teratogens, yeah, they're interesting little critters.
Yes. Well, I think it's important that what you said is it's not about the handicapped.
Yeah.
Handicap. It's about what you can do, and you don't see it that way. And what's so neat about that is that your mom didn't, when she saw you scurrying out of the bed, out of the crib,
Right.
and never treated you as if you had anything different from your siblings.
Right. Right. So I just thought, okay. I never thought otherwise.
Yeah.
So, and I've never experienced anything differently. I think all those fingers are just getting away.
Well, the nails look terrible, too. Look at that.
I only have two, so I don't have to worry about it. That's a lot easier. It's enough to scratch my ear. So. Yeah, so, yeah, you look at it however you want to. I look at it, and I just look at it as like, well, okay, this is my packaging. Okay.
Yeah.
Deal with it, world.
Yeah.
So, I need resources. I have people come in, help me or whatever, whenever I need it. So, it's on you go.
Yeah.
It sure has made for a very interesting creative life.
How so?
Well, every day is an act of creativity. I don't even really think about it. It's just, I have to think, well, how am I going to pick this up or carry that or do this, or I just do it.
You just do it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And in fact, this is kind of funny. My daughter, Marissa.
Come on over. I think this would be a great time to meet you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, have a seat.
So this is my daughter, Marissa. And when she was little, I raised her as a single parent. Her father ended up, ironically, finally was diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder from the Vietnam War. But so anyway, that's beside the point. Anyway, so I raised her by myself. So anyway, Band-Aids. Interesting little experience. So to open a Band-Aid, you all use all your fingers. Well, I can't. So I've always put it to my teeth, and then I pull. Mm-hmm. And so you were about 2-3 years old, and you had a Band-Aid, and you too tried to go from your teeth, because that's what children do.
Wow.
They imitate what they see. So I said, oh, honey, no, you can do it. And I had to get her fingers. I say, okay, now take that, hold this part of the Band-Aid, there you go. Now take this, hold that part of it, okay, there you go. Now pull. And she figured, oh, that's how you can do it. So we always had some fun adventures, huh? Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything stands out in your mind?
I mean, I probably was too young to remember stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I always just remember you being like, oh, hey Marissa, will you open this for me? I'm like, can you do it? And she's like, yeah, but it's easier if you do it.
Handy having you around.
I get a lot of different jobs around the house because she's like, you know what, you should do this.
You can do it a lot easier than I could. Yeah. but I can do it, so. Look at here, I make use of your fingers. Yeah, I borrow other people's fingers a lot of times. Or like when you have to sign something down at the bottom of the page, I always, could I borrow your hand? Here, hold the paper for me, and then I sign that. Thank you very much. Little things like that.
Yeah. Or when you like hand me your hand, you're like, you see that cuticle? Can you rip it off?
Yeah. Can you pull that off right there? Because this hand won't do. I'll have to, have to.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you can pull that off, couldn't you? I'll just use your fingers. We've had quite a fun adventure, haven't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, we've just gone on all kinds of road trips, and we traveled to Ireland, and things we wanted to do. We'll go do it. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So
is there anything, Marissa, that you want to talk about with your childhood that?
Well, growing up, nobody ever talked to me about you being handicapped because I never saw you.
Oh,
and
right.
I do believe that also is because I'm a girl. If I was a boy, it probably would have been different. Like my friends who would come over might have made fun of me later or something like that. Who knows? Maybe it was because I was a girl.
Yeah.
But growing up, I never really saw this. I never really saw it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was normal.
It was normal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw it as a problem. I never saw it as an issue. I never saw it as different.
This is our norm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even when I'd see at school other kids who had disformed hands and stuff like that too, it never really bothered me. Never really crossed my mind.
Yes.
It was normal.
Normal.
Yeah.
I wonder if that ultimately impacted you in a really positive way. To have, an acceptance and an understanding, and to see people for something that's deeper than a surface.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you do. In high school, your activity with the Gay Straight Alliance, people who were so-called foreigners. Yeah, she's always just been very open and inclusive.
Wow.
In that regard.
Yeah. Well, my favorite culture isn't my own. It's Japan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think, maybe we're wired that way. It's maybe our experience, a little of both. Who knows? Yeah. So it's. I think anytime people see something that they have no familiarity with, it can be a little scary. And one thing I always found interesting is that it seemed that people thought it's contagious. And with little kids, I love answering little kids' questions. Because they'll look, and I'll go, aren't those fingers cute?
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, they're good for scratching my ear. And then they kind of grin, and they said, I was just born that way. Like some people with yellow hair, some people with brown hair. I came with these fingers. You cannot lose yours. Your fingers are there. Mine just came this way. So little kids are trying to sort this all out, and then grown-ups, a lot of them just have absolutely no experience with anything other than their own little world.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun and intriguing. My body's just by itself as a teacher.
Yeah.
For other people.
And I imagine that you're talking about it.
Oh yeah.
And, noticing that a child might look.
Oh yeah.
And willingly talk about it is communicating that this is okay.
It's okay.
This is absolutely okay.
Right.
It's okay to talk about, it's not something to hide.
It isn't contagious.
It isn't contagious.
I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people are scared about.
Yeah.
Just through, I call that my intuitive detection. It just seems like people, oh God. I remember one time I had to go see the doctor, sinus infection, and it was not my usual doctor, and anyway, so the doctor walked in, and they typically hold their hand out to shake hands, and so I do it slowly. I don't immediately put my hand out like a lot of people. So they have a chance to go, oh, those fingers are different. And he recoiled. which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
For a doctor,
Yeah.
I would have thought that a doctor would have had experience. And then he was really embarrassed about his own behavior. So I just try to put people at ease. It's all kinds of people just lack the experience. So I even think of mental retardation, cerebral palsy, any kind of blindness.
Yeah.
So our packaging is different. The packaging is different even with colors or sexual orientation. Big deal.
And what I think part of this is some things that are different about us are immediately visible,
Right.
and some things aren't.
Are not.
And it really doesn't matter because at the
Right.
end of the day, we're all a little different,
Right.
or we all have something that we're struggling with.
Right.
And your openness and generosity about talking about this
Yeah.
conveys that message that it's okay. We're all okay.
Excellent. We need to. It's silly not to talk about the 800-pound gorilla that's sitting right there.
That's sitting right there.
It's like, hello.
Yeah.
And like every semester with new classes, I have to remember consciously, tell them, yes, the fingers here. Your eyes are not playing tricks on you. Yeah, there really are 4 fingers here. Because it's the obvious thing. I forget. It's just part of my everyday experience, but it's not their experience. So I have to, acknowledge it. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, I know. Things like post-traumatic stress disorder, that's not a visible one.
Right? You can't see that when you meet someone, can
Yeah. Unless there's some sort of behavior. So I think it's important that we realize, just like you said, we're not cookie-cutter clones, thank goodness. How dull would that be?
Yeah.
And we all have our uniqueness. So go with it. It isn't contagious. Schizophrenia is not contagious.
Right?
This birth defect is not contagious. So.
I turned out normal.
You're fine, yeah. Mine's not genetic. Yeah, feet, no issue here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is not genetic, it was purely environmental.
You're like how when you gave birth to me, the first thing you asked the doctor was, how many fingers and toes does she have?
I did. Fingers and toes. I mean, I knew she was going to be okay.
But that was still something you
But
were
still a concern
about.
You know what you have to deal with that. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, I imagine, for anyone, you worry about the baby.
Oh, absolutely.
And I imagine with what you experienced in life,
yeah,
it was bigger.
Bigger, yeah. And I just wanted to make sure, okay, she's got a clean shot at life.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And what about your parents? What did they think when they had their first child and she didn't come out right?
Right. Here's what's really odd. See, my parents were born in 1925, and I think it's part of the generation. They're the World War II generation, Great Depression, and they didn't talk about these things. We could talk about the physicality, but we never talked about how does it feel emotionally. And I have gotten things out of my mom. Dad's passed away, and Mom said things like, my dad's sister thought I was going to be in a wheelchair my whole life. They just didn't know in 1952. They didn't know, how adaptable can people be. Yeah, I think they had to have been very scared. I do remember my dad did tell me that he went back to his hometown, little teeny tiny town in Oklahoma, I think a town of about 700 people. And he went into his little hometown church, and he said that he just cried and cried and cried and cried.
Aww.
And I thought, okay. And he was a man who I learned later had freed Nazi concentration camps.
Oh, wow.
And he never talked about it. So I'm thinking that trauma, this trauma, of course he's going to, that had to have been really horrible, really difficult. But, so you want the best for your children, and who knows?
And what I notice is you two have a really close relationship.
Whether we want to or not.
Is there anything you want to say about that?
I don't know.
Get away, Mom, go away. Sorry, honey, sorry. Yes,
That's
okay.
a sign of closeness.
I know. Yeah.
moving away right away. I'm not trying to put distance between us. I mean, I went to college fairly close and have no problem hanging out with her, so.
We seem to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hate my mom, like some people apparently do.
I hate my daughter. I enjoy her. Yeah, you're fun. So, yeah. So I think life is just what you make it. Teratogens or not.
That's right.
There you go.
Awesome. Is there anything you guys want to say in closing?
It is what you want to make of it.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah.
I don't know.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Thank you so much.
This is great. Good.
All right.